But coming up after this little musical interlude, you will hear the aforementioned conversation with Vic Penn. And it's a fun one, Mike, and many people might not know about Vic, but it's a good conversation. So it's a good education for a lot. So stick around, listen to this little music, and then you're going to hear our talk with Vic Penn coming up.
No one does an interview quite like the Suns.
All right, so we're pleased to welcome our next guest to the program. So 2 years at UCF at the quarterback position. He threw for over 3,800 yards and 21 touchdowns, and is none other than Vic Penn. Vic, welcome to the Sons of UCF podcast, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. It's nice to be here, and I appreciate you thinking of me.
Yeah, no. So you again, we were saying in the pre-call here, you overlapped with our tenure at UCF. So we certainly remember your days at UCF well. But not a lot of the younger fans may know a lot about your time at the program. So we're excited to kind of get into your career. And I guess the first place we'll start is you didn't start off at UCF, right? So you attended South Carolina out of high school, but you played like 8 games your freshman year for South Carolina. But ultimately, you decided to transfer out of the Gamecock program. What led to that decision? What led you to leave South Carolina?
Well, I in '97, out of high school, I went to the University of South Carolina, and I redshirted my first year, and my second year, I was playing. I was the backup to Anthony Wright, who ended up having a very nice college and NFL career as a quarterback. And against Tennessee, Peyton Manning's final home game in Neyland Stadium, Anthony blew out his knee in the first quarter of that game. It was 110,000 people at that time. It was a record crowd because it was Peyton's final home game. And I went in, he blew out his knee, and I went in and I played the final, 3 or 4 games, and actually was honored All-SEC Freshman Quarterback of the Year of 1997. And at the conclusion of that season, our offensive coordinator, who recently passed away, John Reeves, was let go from South Carolina. And he was, an understroyer for many, many years. He's a former Florida Gator quarterback, and he liked to throw the ball. And that's what I'd like to do. So when he left and they brought in, a different type of system, they wanted me to run the option and do all these other types of things. And I was just, I'm a drop back passer. And I ended up leaving as well once he was let go. So I did 1 year in Garden City, Kansas Junior College after that. And then I ended up playing my final 2 years out at UCF.
Yeah. So talk to us about that. How did you end up at UCF? I know you came out of Miami High. So obviously
Right.
You're probably familiar with UCF, but how'd you end up at UCF? Who called you, and how'd you get connected up to Orlando?
Well, like I said, I went a year to Garden City, Kansas, and Coach Scott Fountain called me from UCF, and he was an offensive line coach, / recruiter at the time for UCF. And being out in Kansas for a year, being from Miami and being out in Kansas for a year at that young of an age, I just wanted to come back home, basically. And when UCF called, Dante Culpepper was the quarterback. He had been playing there for 4 years. They didn't have anybody behind him to come up and step in. So they called me up, and they offered me a scholarship, and they had a tremendous schedule. I think it was Purdue, Florida, Georgia Tech, Georgia, Auburn that 99 year. So I knew I was going to play some pretty big games. And when they called me, and it just felt like the right thing to do. And I came back to Orlando, came back home, and the rest is history.
Hey, Vic, being on that 97 South Carolina team, you guys actually played against UCF and only beat us 33-31.
That's right.
Did that game, did that really affect you coming to UCF?
I didn't play quarterback in that game. I was the backup. Anthony was the starter. He played the whole game, but I was the holder for the extra points. And I think we got a couple field goals in there, but that was a great game, and we pulled it out. South Carolina pulled it out, but Dante was the quarterback there, and he did a phenomenal job, and they were tough. I mean, UCF always had a respectable team, and you just couldn't. As you all know, we were always this close from beating that big game until we beat Alabama. But that South Carolina game, I was the holder for the field goals and the extra points, and we were able to pull that one out.
Yeah, right. So in '99, after Dante leaves, nobody really knows what to expect after that, right?
Right.
You come in and you win the starting job in spring over Kelvin Robinson, and I think Brian Miller was there too. What do you remember about that battle? And did Coach Cruz kind of just promise you the job coming in, or no?
No, not at all. I mean, I wasn't there for spring because I didn't get to UCF until the fall. So I was right. I mean, I got there right before the start of training camp, and it was not promised to me. No, Brian Miller came in at the same time. Brian was a freshman, tremendous athlete. Kelvin was already there. Kelvin played in the spring practice, but no, it was not promised to me. But I'll tell you what, Coach Kruzak, having played with and being coached by some tremendous coaches in my time, Kruzak, and he taught me more about quarterback than I've ever known. I mean, if I had known the things that I knew from Kruzak when I was at South Carolina, I'd have been that much better because he took it to another level. He really did. I mean, I didn't have the you hear a lot about quarterbacks having the okay to audible. Kruzak made it where you came up to the line of scrimmage, and if you saw this defense, you better audible. You better change it. If he calls this play and they come out in the defense that's going to stop that play, you better get out of it before the play starts. You better call one of these 3 or 4 plays. So we were really, as an offense, at a different level back then because we were required to change the play based on what we saw that the defense was giving us. And he had little keys with the number 44. Now, every time number 44 is at that hash mark, they look like they're in cover 2, but they're going to drop into cover 3. Now, every time 44 is over here 2 more yards, they stay in the cover 2 or they stay in the cover 3. So he had little keys, little things like that. When you came up to the line of scrimmage that you had to look for, and you would know what defense they were going to be in based on one guy, and you better change that play at the line of scrimmage and get our offense into the right place. So he was tremendous quarterback coach. He really was.
Well, replacing Dante, I mean, Dante was basically a legend at UCF.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel a lot of pressure replacing him, or like all you
not really
to think about it that much?
I mean, the media made a big deal out of it because, first of all, Dante was like 6'4", 260, and I was 6'1", 175. So it was a big difference, right? But I never felt any pressure having to replace Dante. I think the media made it more of a bigger deal than it really was. I was really well accepted by my teammates and coaches, and I never really felt like I had to, prove anything or be like Dante or anything of that nature. I think they nicknamed me Vic Penn Pepper. So they called me Vic K a lot, but Dante obviously is a tremendous quarterback and got a lot of respect for him. But no, I never felt the pressure. I just wanted to go out there and play my own brand of football.
Well, let's talk about Coach Cruz for a second. So you mentioned him a little bit, but it seems common now. But back in '99, the offense UCF was running was actually pretty innovative, right? It was kind of a heavy passing attack, and most programs at that point were doing the option we talked about, or it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust, or student body left, student body right. But Cruz was kind of opened it up and sort of that kind of the air raid-ish offense we see today. What do you remember about playing in that offense, and how exciting was that for you as a quarterback and as a player to be able to be a part of a scheme like that?
It was phenomenal because I came from the University of South Carolina, as I mentioned, and John Reeves was my quarterback coach. And John Reeves played under Spurrier and was one of the Florida Gators' all-time greatest quarterbacks. And they were run and shoot, and Spurrier, as you know, is run and shoot. And the system that we ran at South Carolina was identical to the Florida Gators system, which is obviously run and shoot and throw the ball. But when I got to UCF, Coach Kruzak, who he was a Pittsburgh Steeler, he was NFL for a long time, as Super Bowl champion under Terry Bradshaw. Behind Terry Bradshaw, came in and I think he won 6 straight games in a row. He took it to another level. I mean, we were running a serious NFL offense because not only with the schemes, but as I mentioned, but the ability to recognize a defense, read a defense pre-snap, and say, listen, like I said, he always had indicators. Look at this one guy. When this one guy gives it away every time. When he's here, they run this. When he's there, they run that. So we were able to come out and, first of all, he was very, very, very creative in the schemes that he ran. The routes, we didn't run the ball much. I think I set the UCF attempt record in the same year. I think I threw 455 times in that year. So we threw the ball quite a bit. But he made it where you had to know the defense prior to the snap of the ball, and what they ended up in, you already knew based off one guy's key. One guy would give it away. So Kruzak took it to another level. He really did.
Well, scheduling has been a big topic of conversation for UCF lately. But you mentioned it earlier, that 99 season, we started off against 4 ranked opponents. First one was Purdue at home, and Drew Brees came to town, right?
Mm-hmm.
We hadn't lost a home game in over 2 years at that point. What do you remember about that game? And they beat us up pretty good, though.
Yeah. Well, we came out. I threw a touchdown pass to Kenny Clark on the first drive, and I think the extra point was snapped over my head, and so we went up 6-0. Touchdown pass to Kenny. We came out the first drive, and we scored a lot on the first drive because Kruzak was able to scheme a first drive better than anybody I've ever been around, because he just knew what they were going to do on that first drive. And then we came out, we threw the touchdown pass, and Drew Brees came out and did his thing. He ended up becoming one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But the thing that I remember mostly about that game is, and I think this is the only time this has ever happened in the history of football, and I'm being dead serious because I haven't seen it since, and I hadn't seen it prior. We blocked. Purdue went to kick a field goal, all right, and we blocked their field goal. And when the ball was blocked by UCF, by us, it bounced right back to the holder. The holder picks it up and throws a touchdown pass to a tight end that's just running down the field, okay? So picture it. A blocked field goal, boom, it blocks. It goes right back to the holder. The holder picks it up and throws a touchdown pass. I've never seen it happen. But that's the type of thing that would doom us, from time to time. But they ended up beating us, Purdue, and the thing that sticks out in my mind in that game is that we blocked the field goal. The holder picks it up and throws a touchdown pass. That just doesn't happen.
When something like that happens, it's not your day. And you're right about scoring first, because the very next week we went to Gainesville and we scored first on them too. On the game, we were up 7-0 in that game.
We did. He was very good at scheming first drives because he would say, "This is what they're going to be in. This is what they do every first drive." So he had a game plan on that first drive, and most of the time we would score on that first drive because we knew exactly what they were going to be in. We called the plays that would beat those defenses, and we were able to score on first drives pretty well. So when we came into Gainesville in Florida, I think we went up 7-0 there also.
Yeah, and you actually had a pretty big game. You threw for, I think, over 375 and had 3 touchdowns.
Yep. Yep.
You're feeling pretty comfortable now in the offense now.
Yeah, well, I mean, that plus when you're in the swamp playing and that crowd is so loud, and it's like, I mean, it puts you, it's almost like you're on like some kind of drug because your adrenaline is, I was like a machine. If the crowd would just be quiet, I probably wouldn't have played as well, but they were so loud and it was so intense that my body just, it was the best football game I've ever played in my entire life, and I give that to the Florida Gator crowd. I appreciate their help.
Oh, so the next
the adrenaline just goes to another level, and you just, I couldn't be stopped. I think I threw 35 completions or something of that nature and 300 something yards. So I gave it up to the crowd.
All right, so the next week we lose to Georgia Tech, and so we're 0-3, and we head up to Athens, Georgia for a matchup against the then 11th ranked Georgia Bulldogs. So I think you know where this one's going. A lot of questions we had to ask here, right? So let me just start here. From the beginning of that game, the energy has felt different, and you guys went into halftime tied at 17. Was there anything specific in the game plan that led to give you guys more confidence that week? Or do you think playing some of the other ranked opponents leading up to that really kind of made a factor, especially as you guys went at the halftime with the tie game?
I think we were all kicked off that we were 0-3 at that point. And in that week of practice, we were going to do anything we could to win this game because we were not going to go 0-4. And we had a great week of practice, and again, we lost. You know what happened at the end there, but we almost beat them. We almost won, and it was just, I don't think there was anything different. It was just, we're going to go in here and we're going to beat this team because we worked hard, all camp, and we knew we had I think it was our first 4 games were the toughest in the United States, in the nation. I think it was the first 4 games of the toughest schedule, Purdue, Florida, Georgia Tech, then Georgia. And we just weren't going to lose that game. We weren't.
Well, so
all week long.
Yeah, so not to cut you off. So that's halftime, right? So then you head into the third quarter. So
right.
You lead an 89-yard TD drive. You threw a pass to Paige Sessom, who was your fullback at the time. And then Borlegi misses the extra point, right? So this is third quarter, right? So still plenty of time to play. At that point, did you think that was a big deal? I mean, did you have any feeling that would come back?
The extra point miss, I think it was mid fourth quarter. I don't think it was third. It was mid fourth. And it should have tied at 24-24, but it ended up being 24-23. And we got the ball back, with about a minute to go. So to answer your question, no, because we were going to win it anyway. So the extra point wasn't an issue at that point in my mind. I was the holder for that extra point, and I think it hit the upright and bounced right off the upright. But no, I didn't think it was a factor. Obviously, looking back on it now, I wish we would have made it, because we would have maybe put it into an overtime type situation. I don't even know if we had overtime back then, but yeah, we did have overtime then. So.
Well, so you weren't done. Like you said, there was a minute 41 left on the clock, and you got the ball back. So we're down 1. So you bring the Knights down 61 yards. You find yourself on the Georgia 20-yard line, 25 seconds to go. Now, obviously, there had been some challenges with the kicking game. You referenced the miss there. So obviously, at that point, we could have lined up. It would have been a 37-yarder for Borlegi. But Kruzek decides to run one more play. What were your thoughts on that decision? Do you remember that call and what that decision was?
I remember exactly what happened. We called timeout. I think I scrambled and I ran down to the 19-yard line and I slid, and then we called timeout and we went over to the huddle. And what we should have done is just maybe run a couple of running plays, maybe get 5 or 6 yards closer, kick the field goal, and go home for win. But we decided to throw a fade route to Kenny Clark in the back of the end zone. It was going to be something safe. We're going to take a shot. Maybe we get it. If we don't, it's going to be incomplete. No interceptions. And I threw the pass, and the ball went out of bounds. So Kenny and the defensive back for Georgia went up for the pass for the ball, but they were already on the sideline. They were already out of bounds. So the infraction that took place, they called offensive pass interference on Kenny, which is ridiculous. And it's homegrown, Georgia referees, those SEC referees. They collided a little bit, but it was out of bounds. The ball was out of bounds. It should have been a no call, and we should have came back and kicked the field goal. But what happened is they called offensive pass interference on us. They backed us up 15 yards. On the next play, which nobody remembers, I hit to Tavarius Davis 15 yards back to the 19-yard line on an out route. They called us for lining up wrong. Okay, so it was illegal, not illegal move. It was we didn't have enough men on the line of scrimmage. Okay, which a lot of people don't talk about that one, because I hit Tavarius Davis right back down to the 19 after we lost 15 yards on the previous pass interference. So they called 2 penalties on us back to back, and they backed us up 30 yards. Both of them 25 yards. One was a 15-yard penalty, one was a 10-yard penalty. So and then that just put us out of range. And then I think we had one chance at a Hail Mary at the end, but we had it was a bad snap. Something happened, and I got hit. I threw the ball up. I just went straight up in the air. So that pass interference really took the wind out of everybody. And then coming back and throwing that pass to bring us back down to the 19, and then being called again for a second penalty. There were 2 penalties in that game. And just at that point, we were at a field goal range, and we had no chance but just try to throw it up for, at the end of the game there. So we ended up losing 24-23. But that would have been a great victory for us. And I'm confident that Javier Berlegui would have made that field goal had we just maybe run a couple plays, not thrown the fade to Kenny, run a couple plays and have Javier kick the field goal in the game, which he did against Alabama the next year.
Yeah, he sure did. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is, we had so many close calls kind of coming up to the ranks in the early D1 years. And the Georgia game here was certainly one of the most egregious. So obviously in the locker room, I can imagine it's probably a pretty tough scene. What did Coach Kruzek say to you guys after that game?
To be honest, I can't remember. But he was very, he was proud of us. I know he was proud of us. We didn't put the blame on anybody. Certainly don't blame Javier or anyone. It was a team effort, the team loss. There were a lot of things during that game that could have happened that would have changed the outcome. But it was the referees, in my opinion. It was the referees. So they called 2 bogus penalties on us at the end there. But we played hard. We played tough. We had a tremendous offense. We had a lot of players on that team with a lot of heart, a lot of fight. Most of us were undersized because back then UCF, we were too small in the minds of Florida State and Florida and Miami, so we would end up at UCF. But a lot of heart on that football team, and a lot of great friends, a lot of great memories to this day. And it's unfortunate that we lost that Georgia game because we really should have won that.
Yeah. So after that 0-4 start, you guys got on a little roll. We won 3 of the next 4. And you were mentioning the players that you had on that team. Those receivers, Charles Lee, Kenny Clark, Tyson Hinshaw. How fun was it to throw the ball around to those guys?
It was great. I think Tyson ended up having the following year became UCF's. I don't know if he still is. I'm pretty sure he is, but he had the most receptions of any receiver in UCF history. Tremendous receiver, super smart. Kenny, tremendous receiver, super smart, and Charles, tremendous receiver, super smart. And Charles Lee was kind of a freak of nature. I mean, he had he was 6'2", he could, run a 4.3, he could go up and get it. He was fast, and, all 3 of them combined made my life a lot easier because, and Tyson was like having another coach on the field because he was very, very, very smart. He was able to come back to the huddle and tell me what coverages they're running and recommend things and recommend audibles, and, things of that nature. So having all three of them was a lot of fun for me, and it was certainly a great time and a great experience that 99 year.
And later in that year, we went back on the road against Auburn, and another close game. We're winning 10-7. I think 10 minutes to go in the fourth, something like that. And we're driving again, maybe to add on to the lead at the Auburn 24. And we missed it on a third down pass, and Borlegi misses another field goal. And then I think they kind of scored a couple touchdowns to end the game. What do you remember about that game?
We dominated that game. And as far as, I mean, we didn't score a whole lot of points, but we controlled the ball. We threw the heck out of it. I think we're over 300 yards passing on that one also. And it was close. And all of a sudden at the end, it just fell apart. And they scored 2 touchdowns in the final 2 minutes. And they ended up, beating us. But that was a great game and another great experience. Our offense played very, very well for 95% of that game, and it kind of fell apart at the end there. But again, we controlled the ball. We threw it. We completed a lot of passes, and just didn't bounce our way. The ball didn't bounce our way.
Yeah, that seemed to be the case in a lot of those games in 97, 98, 99. We were so close. But so I'm watching a game earlier this year, and they put up a stat on the TV. The only UCF quarterback to ever run for 100 yards in a game, and it was you, Vic Penn, 122 yards against Middle Tennessee, which is still the UCF record. So
that's amazing to me because I'm not a runner. Okay. Kruzak saw I guess a hole in their defense, and he called during the week. He said, "I think we can run this quarterback draw." No, I was pretty fast. I wasn't agile, but I was pretty fast. So he called a quarterback draw. I think it was the first quarter, and it went for like 60 yards. All right, I think I made it all the way down to the 5-yard line. I got tackled at the 5. So I had a couple other runs here and there, and then he called the quarterback draw again in the third quarter, I believe, and it went for like 50. So it was 2 really big runs that I hit that Kruzak saw a hole in their defense, and it totaled to be 122 yards. And I guess 20 years later, at the time, I was the first and only quarterback to ever have rushed for over 100 yards. I think Dante was at like 98. And then I hit 122, and 20 years later, nobody's ever been able to beat 122. There were a couple times where I think Mackenzie Milton got close, and 116, and I think that the quarterback that replaced him maybe hit 120 or something really close. So anytime they get close, they like to mention that stat. Which I like them to get close. I don't like them to beat it, but I like it when they get close because then I get a little TV time.
I must have had some long runs because you only had 11 carries.
Yeah, right. It was 11 carries. It was the 2 big ones, and I think probably 2 of those 11 carries are probably sacks. But I had an 8-yard run here, a 9-yard run there, plus the 2 big ones, and that's how I got the 122. But to this day, it's still the record, which is it's fun for me. I mean, if somebody breaks it, it's great. But it's fun for me to when we're on with the guys and hanging out and watching games, and somebody starts to get close to 122. But thus far, 20 years, nobody's done it, so I'm proud of that.
Yeah, 20 years is a long time for any record, man.
Yeah, definitely.
So shifting to the 2000 season, we start off 1-2. We had a close loss to Georgia Tech, and then there start to be a lot of reports in the media about quarterback controversy, and Ryan Schneider was the backup at that point. How much does that kind of stuff impact a player? Did that affect you at all? Were you aware of it? How much does that stuff kind of get back to you guys? When you're living in the moment like that.
To be honest, it didn't really impact me at all. I wasn't playing as well as I played the previous year in the first 2 or 3 games of 2000. Ryan Schneider, ended up becoming one of UCF's greatest quarterbacks of all time. A good friend of mine to this day, and he used to actually like bless my footballs before I would play. So we were always good friends. There was never, I always pulled for him. But when the media starts talking about quarterback controversies and whatnot, we really don't pay too much attention to that. We just try to go out there and play our own game and do the best we can. I don't think that had any impact on me. I ended up separating my shoulder, and Ryan came in and did a phenomenal job. And he ended up, I think he was a redshirt freshman at the time. I was a fifth-year senior, and he came in and had a nice little second half there, and then ended up becoming one of UCF's most prolific passers. I think he beat a lot of Dante's records as far as passing, and I think he played 4 straight seasons there for UCF and just did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, so you referenced obviously the shoulder injury, and then Schneider takes over. But that season culminates. Obviously, Ryan took the bulk of the snaps from then on out. But you referenced it earlier, so being a part of all those games in '99 where we got so close. Obviously, how sweet was that win versus Alabama that later on that year?
I still think if you YouTube UCF the kick, it'll come up, because Alabama was beating us. They were kicking our butt, and they were running it down our throats. And all of a sudden, they started to pass. And their coach, I think it was DeBose, got fired, I think hours after we beat them, because they stopped running the ball and they started throwing. I think we had an interception return for a touchdown, and we just got the momentum back. And I ended up actually living in Alabama for a few years. And I'm up here in the panhandle of Florida now, by Destin, Pensacola area. So this is Alabama territory up here. So 20 years later, I'm able to say in just about any situation, because I just run into people that have Alabama shirts on, or hats, and they're roll tide, and they're all this and they're all that. And Alabama obviously, is Alabama. And I'm able to say, hey, you know what? We went into Tuscaloosa and we beat you guys in 2000, and Burley made that field goal to win the game. So you can roll tide all you want. All right. But being up here, living up here now, it's a lot of fun to be able to say that to these Alabama fans when they want to run their their mouths and roll tide this and roll tide that. But anyway, a tremendous game. Team effort. Schneider did a great job in that game, really did. And I think we all took a little piece of the grass from the stadium and kept it kind of as for memory purposes. And we went up there and we won. And they were having a down year, but still, nobody knows, nobody cares. We went up there and we beat Alabama. And the story. We just said that for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, so looking back on it now, how would you describe your whole career at UCF?
At UCF, I had a great time. I met phenomenal players. I think Asante Samuel came in my senior year. He was a DB who ended up, in my opinion, one of the greatest cornerbacks in NFL history, because he was darn good. All right, he was really good. So I got to play with a lot of players, a lot of great coaches. Still great memories to this day. UCF and South Carolina play, I'm always kind of like, The good thing about having two teams is that if one of them's having a down year, this year I'm a Gamecock, next year I'm a Knight, and depending on who's having the better year. I'm just kidding, but usually I will pull for UCF. As they say, once a night, always a night. So if South Carolina and UCF are playing, I'm usually pulling for UCF. But I think in UCF they haven't lost a game in 2 years. So tremendous experience. I mean, what they've done with that program since we've left. When I was there, we did not have the on-campus stadium. We've been in the Citrus Bowl. We had, high high school type facilities, and what they've done when O'Leary came in there, what they've done with that stadium and on campus and the indoor facility and all of the amenities that they have on that campus now, it's remarkable, because when I was there, we didn't have anything like that. As you guys remember, because you were there too. So just a great experience at UCF. Wouldn't have changed a thing. I ended up meeting my wife there, having a son. So, you know, as far as everything, I wouldn't have changed my decision, and very happy to be, you know, a UCF fan.
But catch us up on your life after UCF. Did you stick around in football? Did you do any coaching, or are you doing something completely different now? What are you doing now?
I played a year. I played a little bit in the Canadian Football League. I played a little bit in the Arena Football League. Right now, I'm a financial advisor, but I work closely with my brother, and he's started a clothing company called Noel Clothing, which you can find at www.nolcc.com. And it's really unique because it's a brand of fitness wear that specializes in the health, performance, and recovery of athletes. And we're able to achieve this through the clothing by using fabrics such as hemp, organic cotton, and other materials that are known to contain many features that are not found in other fabrics, but are really designed to help the performance and recovery, especially the recovery of athletes. It's a hemp-based clothing wear. So, and it's Noel Clothing, and I partner with him. We're also financial advisors. We help veterans obtain benefits that they normally would not obtain, because the VA has income and asset restrictions on certain things. So we have to rearrange their entire estate, working with attorneys to put the veterans in a position, and we're talking about World War II veterans, Korean War veterans, Vietnam veterans, older veterans, put them in a position to get $2,000 a month when they need assisted living or in-home health care. So that's what I do now. I'm a financial advisor, and I also work closely with my brother with the Noel Clothing Company. And I'm up here in the Panhandle of Florida, Destin area, if you're familiar with that. But no, I never got into coaching. I coach my son. He's 13 years old, and he's playing tight end and defensive end. But as far as actual coaching, no, I never got into coaching.
All right, so we have a tradition around here on the show, Vic. We end every show, every interview, if you will, with our guests with 10 random questions. So these can be 10 questions about sports, music, movies, UCF, whatever kind of comes to our mind. So are you prepared to face these 10 rapid fire random questions?
Not really, but let's do it anyway.
All right. You said this earlier, so maybe I know the answer, but who was the best athlete you ever saw while you were at UCF?
Charles Lee.
Yeah, you said he ran a 4.340. That's crazy.
He was pretty fast. Yeah, he was up there. He took a pass one time I threw against Auburn. I think it was a 5-yard pitch, and he took it like 89 yards or 79 yards, something like that. He went through 11 defenders of Auburn and just took it to the end zone. It was one of the most phenomenal runs I've ever seen. So I have to say Charles Lee.
All right. What was the best bar at UCF when you were there? Because I know me and Adam used to go to a bunch of them. We probably saw you out. So is it the pub, the Liquid Cellar, or the Wing Shack?
I know nothing. What's a bar? I would say the Liquid Cellar, probably, yeah.
That place is great. All right, so you mentioned this earlier. So that 99 season, you guys played like a murderer's row of teams. Obviously, we didn't have a conference back then, so it's a lot easier. But current time, there's a lot of chatter going back and forth about UCF and scheduling and so on and so forth. And Danny White, the AD, has taken a stance that he's not a fan of playing 2-for-1 games. So the question to you, Vic, is should UCF schedule 2-for-1 games?
Yes.
And why?
Well, I think they need to do something with their schedule. I don't know exactly what that is. If they need to increase, because the reason why they're not getting ranked where they need to be ranked, is, in my opinion, is because they're not playing the schedule that the other teams are playing. The conference that they're in, they need to get bigger teams in there, because they're a big team, okay, but they're not getting the respect that they deserve because they're not playing the schedule that the SEC is playing. So, although they haven't lost a game in 2 years, the schedule isn't really where it needs to be in order to get them where they need to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a fair take. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. It's just obviously, South Florida, the Cows over there in Tampa, they've adopted a model. We have our model, but it certainly just brought a lot of healthy banter back and forth the last couple of weeks. So I was curious to get some former players' perspectives on how that works.
All right. One of the other guys we talked to a few months ago was Bo Clark, and his dad, Torchy. He's got a book coming out on his dad, Torchy. Did you ever have a class with Torchy while you were at UCF?
I did not. Torchy, I met him. I've spoken with him many, many times. But I know a tremendous UCF night, Torchy Clark, and but I don't think I had one of his classes. I can't remember, but I remember speaking with him many, many times. Just a lot of wisdom, a lot of insights on certain things. But no, I never had a class.
So in your career, you spent some time. Sometimes you weren't on the field, and you were the backup, or you were out of the game already. And a lot of offenses, the quarterbacks on the sidelines, they signal in the plays to the quarterback on the field. Have you ever accidentally signaled in the wrong play? And how do you guys remember all those different signals for all the different plays you have?
Well, at UCF, no. One of our coaches, Alan Gooch, was the signaler. So the quarterbacks didn't signal in the plays. Coach Gooch did. But we had to spend a lot of time in the classroom learning those signals after practice, in meetings. Certain days we had to go in there and just, it was just repetition. Coach Cruz was very good at that. So once you pick it up, it's just like learning a language. It becomes second nature. It's like riding a bike. You can just signal it in, you know exactly what it is. It just takes 2 seconds, you know exactly what it is, because it's like learning sign language almost. Very easy once you do it, but it takes a lot of practice over and over, a lot of repetition in order to get to where you need to be in order to make it second nature.
All right, we talked a lot about the 99 Georgia game. We know it as the burglary between the hedges. Now, did you have any sense of redemption when we beat them in 2010 in the Liberty Bowl? Did that make up for it at all for you?
I was happy that we won. It will never make up for it, because I've always, to this day, 24-23, and being so close and getting down to the 19-yard line with under a minute left, and just being right there to win the game and go home and shock the world. It didn't give me any. Didn't help soothe my feelings or my broken heart, if you will.
All right, so you played quarterback, so obviously there are some times, unfortunately, where you got hit, you got sacked, maybe one of your linemen got beat, and they gave up a hit. Has a lineman ever apologized to you? So you get just blasted, and a lineman comes over and puts his hand out to help you up. Has anybody ever apologized to you or said hey, my bad, or do you even want them to say something to you in that moment?
No, I just want to tell them to get the heck out of here. But no, I'm always kidding. No, I play with a lot of great offensive linemen, and but yes, they do. If they make a mistake and I get nailed, most of the time they'll apologize. Yes.
Okay, so being the starting quarterback of a college team has to be pretty cool. And I'm sure there's some perks that go along with it. How easy was it to talk to the ladies with that opening line? Hey, I'm the quarterback. You said you met your wife out there, so I'm sure it worked.
Yeah, I met her after. Yeah, I didn't. You got to be smart about it. You can't go be hey, I'm the quarterback.
No.
You just have to. There are definitely perks. definitely perks. But Cruzak kept us so busy that I didn't really have a lot of time to go out and socialize during my time there. So I know nothing.
All right, so
We gotta have another conversation.
yeah, we gotta hit stop real quick and get some details here. All right, last one for me. So if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Invisible.
Oh, well, okay. Why? I've got to know.
Because I could just be invisible and I can do pretty much whatever I wanted.
Fair enough.
If I would pick I would pick to be invisible and whatever I wanted.
All right, I got one more. We all know Coach K was the strongest guy on the team. But who is the next strongest guy among the players that you played with?
Paige Sessoms in the story.
You think he can beat Coach in an arm wrestling contest?
Could Paige beat Cruz?
Yeah.
Now or back then?
No, back
I
then.
don't know. Cruzak is a pretty strong guy. I mean, he was in the weight room, 5 in the morning, working out, setting the example. But Paige, I think Paige will probably take him. Paige is a strong dude.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Cruzak's son Garrett probably about, I don't know, like 20 shows ago, and he says that Coach still gets up every morning and gets in the gym and still pumping iron. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll have to set that up or not, but Cruz certainly had.
When I first met Garrett, he was a little boy. He was probably 6 or 7 years old. So it's amazing how fast it goes.
Yeah.
He was a little kid when Coach would bring him around. Yeah, I still think the Paige should probably take him.
All right, we'll see if we can set that up. We'll have to look in the budget and see if we have that in the show budget. But listen, Vic, we appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule and catching up and reminiscing. Again, you were there when we were there, so we always remember your years fondly at UCF, and certainly everything you did for the program and all the hard work you put into that 99-2000 season, and sort of where the program has come as, because of guys like you and the sacrifices and what you all put in. So I definitely appreciate your time as a Knight, and I appreciate you for taking some time to join us tonight.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you guys thinking about me and having me on. I wish you the best of luck. Again, once a night, always a night, and you guys also do a lot for the program, and we certainly appreciate that, and I certainly appreciate your kind words. Thank you very much.
Well, actually, so little known fact, I'm going to let this out to the listeners. Little known fact, Vic. So when we were thinking about starting a podcast, we were trying to think of a name for the show, and for a while, the working title was The Sons of Vic Penn. But then we were like, you know what? I don't want to get sued. We don't know Vic like that. So we then changed it to The Sons of Mike Cruzak. And we did that for a little bit. And then Garrett actually reached out and was like, hey, is that me? So we realized that maybe we'd get some confusion. So you were initially the working title for the show. So little known show trivia fact.
Yeah, I appreciate it very, very, very much. Thank you very much, guys.
Hey, Vic, you ever make it back to Orlando for any games?
The last game I went to was against Marshall, probably in 2000. And no, I was at the Texas game in the new stadium when it opened years ago. But I haven't been back to a game probably in about 5 years, I think. I went to a Marshall game maybe 5 years or so ago, but have not been back in a while. My life and work up here just kind of keeps me busy. But certainly I intend to, start attending more games, especially now that my son is really showing, an interest in football. And, so absolutely, if I do come to a game, I'll make sure to let you all know, and maybe we can meet up and go to one of those, what you will call them. One of those coffee houses or something.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. Thanks so much for joining us, man. You're the best.
All right, guys. Thank you very much, and have a nice night.
Cow of the week.
All right, Mike, I'm not gonna lie to you. Behind the scenes, we'll peel the curtain back of the show. I geeked out when I was able to get Vic Penn, and you were like, okay, cool. I was like, no, dude, we got Vic Penn, and you're like, okay, man, cool, whatever. He was good. But like, I just remember that time, and we heard we had a transfer, an SEC guy, Dante was gone, and it was just an interesting time for UCF, and we were still, wide-eyed sophomores that year. We didn't know what the hell was going on, and we had some fun watching Vic play. So it was good to hear some of the inside stuff about, the transfer and coming to UCF and what he learned from Coach Cruz and just how he approached the game overall. But man, I forgot what that 99 season was. We talked about scheduling earlier. I mean, again, we were in Independence back then, but what a schedule that was. And, Vic coming in and, taking over for Dante, and that's the schedule we face. And, we weren't the biggest team back then on either of the lines. And, that team played hard. And, it was good to catch up with Vic and kind of go down memory lane and learn more about that 99 season.
Anytime we talked to one of these guys that played while we were in school was really cool. I've enjoyed all of those. Sia Burley and now Vic Penn. And he was really good. He was a good quarterback. I mean, he didn't have a long career with us because he had the injury, but he has records. Does that passing attempt record still stand? I'm not sure. I think it may. And he still has the rushing record in the game. And the one thing he said was he agrees on doing the 2-for-1s, which I see where he's coming from. Because when he played, that's all we did was play on the road. So I'm not surprised in his answer on that. He's not scared of anybody. But it's just not the same now with the whole money thing. The 99 home schedule, for as tough as that road schedule was, that 99 home schedule was Purdue to start the year, and then Eastern Illinois, Nicholls State, Louisiana Tech, Eastern Michigan, and Bowling Green. And try selling those tickets this year. That's our schedule. And that's what happens when you play too many 2-for-1s, or back then, 1 for nothing. We were just taking the money games. So, and it doesn't really matter, even if we did have 2-for-1s and we beat Alabama, we're still not going to get in the playoffs. We could beat the Patriots last year and we weren't getting in. So I don't know. But yeah, Vic Penn was a really cool guy. Enjoyed talking to him. I don't think, the problem is when we were in school, I don't remember a lot of the games because we went really to tailgate, and back then
we got after
the games weren't as big a deal. Like I said, we were playing Nicholls State and Bowling Green at home.
Yeah,
we went there to party.
Yeah, we got after it in the tailgate. There sometimes we didn't go in until like the second quarter. We got after it in the tailgate. But again, you think about you look back now and you see where the program is, and it's funny. You just think about like all the guys that came, way before that kind of built the foundation. And Dante is that kind of the big name, right? But somebody had to be the quarterback after Dante, right? And somebody had to take the reins. And we had a program to continue to build, and that thing could have fallen off the map that year. And while again we didn't win all those games, right? We certainly kept ourselves afloat. Kruzek and the staff did a nice job. Vic did a nice job, And then obviously the next year he comes in, Schneider's there, and sort of the rest is history. But it's just funny, like some of these guys play small fractional moments in the program's history, but you can't take any of those out, right? Because then you don't get to where you're going to be. And I forgot about that Georgia game. I still can't find tape of that Georgia game, but I can only imagine if that happened now. That sounds like it's New Orleans Saints, LA Rams playoff cringeworthy no flag or flag whatever. And so it's good to kind of stroll down memory lane. And again, it's always cool to talk to the guys that we were able to watch live at the old Citrus Bowl there. So. Well, the good thing is, though, is Vic's not our cow of the week, though, because he was a good guy. But some people out there aren't good people and maybe made some mistakes. And for that, they will be judged harshly now by cow of the week nominees, Mike. And I'll let you kick off.
All right. Well, we touched on it earlier. And I'm going to go with Memphis for being a cow this week for scheduling their 2-for-1 with Arkansas. And there are teams you can schedule 2-for-1s with, and I'm not going to make a big deal about it. Alabama, that's fine. I really have no problem with the Cows playing Alabama 2-for-1. Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, the big blue bloods, I'll take that deal too. Arkansas hasn't been anybody in a while. They were 2-10 last year, 4-8 the year before that. All their wins are basically their out-of-conference games, their cupcake games. Other than that, they're not beating anybody. And these guys have had history playing each other before. That's the thing. They've had even deals before, and Arkansas actually bailed out on the last game because Memphis beat them 3 out of 5 times. They didn't want to play them anymore. And now they're accepting a 2-for-1 deal with them. A team in their own region. It's similar to us playing a 2-for-1 with like Florida or Florida State or Miami. So for that reason, I don't like the deal. And then it's kind of hard finding cows. So for this week, they're my cow.
Yeah, but the problem is there's just the same people like over and over again, and that's really the problem with all these cows. Because mine's going to be a replay as well, Mike. And I actually forgot about this one. So you said a key word that I had forgotten about. You recall you said the word Samford earlier, not Stanford. You said Samford earlier, right?
Yep.
Well, so that brings us to our neighbors to the south, whatever they are, the cows. And Mike, the cows again are my cow of the week. And you want to know why they're my cow of the week? So they're out there taking this victory lap on their schedule, right? They've got all these teams coming up. And as teams do these days, social media is a big thing, and they want to make sure they're publicizing it. So the good folks at the cow graphic department put together this nice fancy graphic, Mike. And it says to be the best, you have to play the best anywhere, anytime. Have you seen this graphic?
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious when I saw it too.
Yeah, so the graphic alone is funny enough, right? Because obviously I thought it was you had to beat the best, not play the best, but whatever. And so that is what it is. And then somebody, I was trying to find it while you were talking. I can't find it. Somebody found that exact same graphic had been used by Samford some years back, and it's literally the exact. It's a carbon copy. It's the same color, Mike. It's the same slogan. It's the same everything. They changed a little bit of the wording, but they literally took the exact same graphic and used it as their own. And so the poor Samford Bulldogs, you know, they're not known for much, Mike, but they put together a really cool graphic a couple years back, and the cows literally just stole it. It's exactly the same graphic. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's the exact same graphic.
I saw it. I almost don't believe that it was even true. But the whole saying, to be the best, you have to play the best. That's the thing that I thought was hilarious.
Yeah. And
you don't have to play the best. You have to beat the best.
Yeah.
Anybody can just play. We see that. What's it called? What's the team I was saying? The Citadel. They played Alabama this year. Are they the best? They played Clemson the year before that. Are they? Yeah. I mean, the last 2 years, the Citadel has played Alabama and Clemson. Those are the best.
Hey, don't sleep on the Citadel. Don't sleep on them.
The Citadel is actually the best now too.
Yeah, don't sleep on them. Yeah, don't.
And because they I don't know what the.
Well, it's a double whammy, because not only is the phrasing just hysterical, but then they go and literally take the exact same graphic from somebody else, and they can't even come up with their own crappy graphic and their own crappy saying. I mean, that's how bad that was. And so anytime we can get the cows in here for Cow of the Week, I think it's always a win. So you know, that's on the theme of our show, Mike. We've talked a lot about scheduling, way more scheduling than I want to talk about. I think we should just make a pact from here on out. We're not talking scheduling until UCF announces something. Okay, let's just make an agreement between you and I right now. This is our last scheduling conversation until UCF actually announces something on their schedule, right? I think that just makes sense.
I'm fine with that. But you know, the Cows left one team off their graphic that is the best in their conference, and that's us.
It's interesting, yeah.
We're better than half the teams that they put on their graphic. Miami and Louisville. You telling me we haven't been better than those teams?
I'm not telling you that.
Who else did they put on there? Wisconsin, I think they play this year.
Yeah, Wisconsin, Miami. They have. They're
gonna
Boise.
lose the majority of these games. Is the funny part, but hey, they played them, so that makes them the best now.
Yeah, that's Alabama, Boise, BYU, Florida, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Miami, NC State, Texas, and Wisconsin is on there.
NC State, yeah, they're the best.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. I mean, that's what you got to do. You want to make it big time. Got to get NC State on the schedule. That's for sure.
Teams we've beaten already too.
And that Georgia Tech team, that I don't know what Georgia Tech will be, because they're going away from the option for the first time ever. So who knows what they'll end up being this year. Yeah, it's just crazy. I don't even understand what the Cows are doing. But they're an easy Cow of the Week. Again, they kind of doubled down on the Cow of the Week this year by you know, not only making that graphic, but then stealing it as well too. So they get my Cow of the Week. Always happy to do that, Mike.
The Cows are always the Cows. They're so easy to pick on.
I know. I feel bad picking them up. Well, I don't feel bad. I guess I want to be creative and try to find some new stuff, but it just happens. They just do it to themselves. I'm like, honorable mentions though to Barrett Salee, who apparently didn't watch the Auburn UCF game and was really convinced that Kerryon Johnson did not play that game, although he had 20 carries, Mike, I think it was.
Yeah, 22 carries, 71 yards, touchdown.
Yeah.
Played from beginning to end. But that's the problem with these idiots that are out there and they say something like that, and then people hear it. Oh yeah, Auburn played without their running back. Yeah, no wonder UCF beat them, and they believe it.
Yeah. And that's what happened.
What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? And then Stuart Mandel got out there too, and he had some sort of a weird, odd, wrong tweet about like, "Hey, you're missing all this. Wouldn't you rather play this game than this game?" And clearly not getting our scheduling model. So anybody out there for Cow of the Week, certainly many options, Mike. But either way, good to be back, buddy. I know we took last week off, so good to be back. I think we put together a fun one, man. I was glad to have Vic join us this week. I thought he was excellent as always. A fun top 8 and some interesting headlines, Mike. So a good show overall, man. Great job out of you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. You did pretty good yourself.
Well, I'm going to try to get better, Mike, and I think you should do the same. Next week will be 1% less worse, but check back to hear what that sounds like because I'm interested as well. I got a couple of guests we're tracking down. Might have some good names coming up for you all soon. So stick with us on that front. We'll be back next week here. Same time, same place, Nightline Sports Network, Wednesday morning, Tuesday night, whatever you're into. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Sons of UCF. Also check out UCF Mike 1 as well. Big thanks to Andrew and Trace again, all your help. I know you guys have been off, and hopefully you've enjoyed your vacations and your travels. And as always, thank you, Night Nation, for listening in and your support of the show. It's always appreciated, and we'll certainly check back with you next week, Mike.
Yeah, and one last thing before we go. Tickets for the UCF game at FAU are going on sale this week. I know we're planning on buying some, so everybody should get out there. We're going to fill that place with night fans. And we'll try to set something up, like a tailgate or something, meet some of these guys out there. You're coming down for that game, I
Is there an unconfirmed rumor of the reunion of the Sons of UCF show?
That'll be cool. We'll do like a, I don't know, one of those team live things outdoor, a live show somewhere. And
Adam Schefter is reporting some sources are telling him that may be a possibility. So stay tuned.
I'm excited.
We all are. So, all right. Till next week. Charge on.
See you guys later. Charge on.
Popcorn ready! It's your boy,
I'm something from this.
Oshizi, got Cameron Jordizi. Yeah. Welcome to Get Your Popcorn Ready podcast. It's your host, Hack, with my boy, T.O. What's happening? We got another virtual Zoom show coming to you on Get Your Popcorn Ready today. We got our man Cameron Jordan coming in this building today, boy. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've heard Cameron Jordan's name, quite a bit. I know he's a very charismatic, fashionable guy. I know he's a funny guy. He's one of those guys that's just, I know him to just keep the energy, to keep the locker room loose. He's one of those guys that when he's on that field, he's a dog. Yeah, he's a dog. And, I got to know his dad, Steve Jordan, who was a Minnesota Vikings tight end. So I got to know him through that. Again, but that's when he was living back in Minnesota. Then he moved to